For over 60 years, the ancient oak tree had stood tall in the center of the Caldwell family's yard. Planted by Tom Caldwell's grandfather, the massive oak was more than a tree, it was a legacy. Its gnarled roots cradled decades of memories. Childhood games played under its wide canopy birthday parties, with lanterns hung from its branches, and the quiet comfort it brought to the family after Tom's father passed. It wasn't just part of the property, it was part of the family. So when Tom returned home one Wednesday afternoon to find the giant oak reduced to a lifeless stump, it felt like a personal betrayal. Standing in shock on his front lawn, Tom's eyes scanned the scene. Fresh sawdust coated the grass splinters littered the driveway, and a few uniformed workers from a local tree service were packing up their equipment. He rushed toward them. Who authorized this? He demanded, his voice trembling with anger and disbelief. One of the workers glanced at the clipboard in his hand. Says here it was requested by the HOA Karen Douglas. Something about a root system threatening the sidewalk integrity. Tom's blood boiled. Karen Douglas, the self-appointed enforcer of the Oak Ridge Estates HOA, had always been a thorn in everyone's side. She was notorious for nitpicking lawn heights, citing mailbox paint that was too faded, and sending passive-aggressive emails about holiday decorations. But this? Cutting down his family's tree without so much as a call? By evening, Tom had printed every document proving his tree's location was within the legal bounds of his property. No roots had disturbed the sidewalk, and no warning had been issued. He sat at his kitchen table tree stump visible from the window and began preparing for a fight. Karen Douglas, armed with a laminated HOA manual and a smug sense of authority, strutted through Oak Ridge Estates as though she were mayor. After moving into the neighborhood 3 years ago, she quickly wormed her way onto the HOA board and then seized the role of president. To some, she was detail-oriented. To most, she was a menace. Tom's tree had long been on her radar. Towering and wild-looking compared to the manicured lawns and ornamental shrubs she favored, it didn't fit the aesthetic. And she never forgot how Tom had publicly opposed her motion to ban basketball hoops from driveways during last year's HOA meeting. The tree, she felt, was an eyesore, and in her view, removing it would be doing the neighborhood a favor. She hadn't counted on Tom's resilience. A week after the tree was felled, Tom stood before the HOA board, Karen at its center, and presented a binder filled with evidence, property surveys, photographs, and city arborist reports confirming the oak's health and safety. "That tree was on my property," he said, voice steady. "You had no right." Karen didn't flinch. "The tree's roots were damaging the community sidewalk," she replied coolly. "As HOA president, I'm authorized to act in the community's best interest. You never notified me. You never brought it to a vote. This wasn't about safety, it was personal." The room grew tense. Some board members glanced uneasily at one another. Karen's usual allies suddenly looked hesitant. When Tom mentioned he'd spoken to a lawyer and was preparing to file a lawsuit for property damage, unauthorized trespass, and emotional distress, Karen's eyes narrowed, but even then she didn't back down. "You're welcome to try," she said smugly, "but I was acting within my rights." Tom smiled faintly. "We'll see what a judge thinks about that." By the time the court date arrived, the story had spread through Oak Ridge Estates like wildfire. Neighbors took sides, some defending Karen, fearful of what a lawsuit against the HOA might mean for them. Others rallying behind Tom, tired of Karen's unchecked power. Tom arrived at the county courthouse in a crisp suit, his lawyer beside him. Karen walked in moments later, flanked by the HOA's counsel, looking self-assured in a bright blue blazer and sunglasses perched atop her head, as if she were attending a brunch, not a court hearing. In the courtroom, Tom's lawyer laid out the case with clarity. The oak tree, he explained, was situated a full 5 feet within the property line of the Caldwell home. Certified arborist reports confirmed that the roots posed no threat to public infrastructure. Furthermore, not only had the HOA failed to notify Tom or seek his consent, but they had also violated both HOA bylaws and city ordinances concerning tree removal. Karen's defense leaned heavily on the safety clause within the HOA charter, arguing that she had acted in good faith to prevent hypothetical damage. But when the judge asked for documentation of complaints, repair bills, or professional assessments that led to the decision, the room fell silent. There were none. Karen had ordered the tree cut on her own authority. No vote, no inspection, No notice. The judge sighed, looking over his glasses. This isn't a matter of subjective aesthetic preference, Ms. Douglas. You trespassed on private property, authorized the destruction of valuable natural and emotional property, and bypassed your own HOA rules. That's not enforcement, that's overreach. Karen's confident expression began to crack. By the end of the hearing, the court had ruled in Tom's favor. Karen, and by extension, the HOA was ordered to pay damages for the tree, including fines, legal costs, and compensation for emotional distress. Additionally, the court mandated that all HOA decisions involving private property must be reviewed with written homeowner consent and documented board approval moving forward. Karen didn't say a word as the ruling was read. For once, she had no power, no clipboard to hide behind. The victory was sweet, but it wasn't just about money. For Tom, it was about principle. The oak tree may have been reduced to a stump, but the outcome ensured that no other neighbor would suffer the same fate. The ruling sent shockwaves through the HOA board. In the weeks that followed, Karen's allies slowly distanced themselves. An emergency meeting was called to vote on her continued presidency. And in a quiet, almost anticlimactic moment, Karen was voted out. She left the neighborhood months later, her house sold quietly to a young couple with a golden retriever and a toddler. No one threw her a farewell party. Tom, meanwhile, had a new plan. With the settlement money, he hired a landscaping team and planted 3 young oak saplings where the old tree once stood. In the center, he placed a small plaque that read, "In memory of what was, and in hope of what will grow." Neighbors stopped by offering congratulations and warm thanks. Even those who had once feared standing up to Karen now found themselves volunteering for a restructured HOA board, one built on transparency, fairness, and mutual respect. The trees grew slowly as oaks do, but Tom didn't mind. He had time. And now so did the neighborhood. Oak Ridge Estates was no longer a place ruled by power-tripping rules and unchecked control. It had been reclaimed by the people who lived there, who loved it, and who stood up when it mattered most. And every time Tom sat on his porch with a cup of coffee, watching the saplings sway gently in the wind, he smiled. Justice had been served, and new roots were taking hold.